feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here, and as always, go follow us on the social media, do the thing with the thing, Sports Experience on Instagram. Go follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube. Leave comments if you have any suggestions for future episodes. We've definitely made some into current episodes that we've had. In addition, we're recording down here at Engle Studio in downtown Tucson for all your audio needs. And big thank you to KFMA, along with Beef, Vegan, and Weirdo for having us on earlier in the week to promote the podcast.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We did a radio appearance for this podcast. If you want to check it out, we're going backwards. We're going back in time with it. And today, we're talking about the big unit, Randy Johnson, and we're not talking about his Johnson.
It's bigger than Shaq's Johnson,
Is
probably.
ranty. Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest here.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
The debate is still out, but we're talking about, probably the best left-hander ever.
Yeah, you could make that argument. I
Yeah.
think you really could. But he had quite the interesting beginning of his career. Which
Oh,
we'll get
yeah,
into as
definitely
far as a
nobody-
long road. In fact, we have a starting lineup right there of him.
That's so awesome. But yeah, nobody thought he was going to be. There's so many things that happened. So
And big shout out to my buddy Matt. He actually texted me.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is a suggestion. So
Nice.
Thanks, Matt,
Yep.
for giving us some content. So Randall David Johnson, born September 10th, 1963 in Walnut Creek, California. One of 6 kids and quite the athletic child growing up.
Oh, absolutely.
As all of our athletes seem
Yes.
to be.
excelled in basketball and baseball, but he was just one of these kids that was tall from that young age where you're just like, oh, this kid's going to be huge.
He bought a lot of his teammates beer when they were in Little League.
Nice.
I'm assuming. Because I'm assuming he had that mustache
Yep.
when he was about 8.
Had the mullet.
Like, just walked in just dazed and confused style. Just like, hey,
All
need some
right,
bourbon.
all right.
That's what I love about these Little League teams. So, good story. He would throw the baseball against the side of the garage door, and he would end up loosening the nails in the siding, and his dad would always just show up outside with a hammer and say, go and fix it.
Yep.
Get to fixing that.
Yeah, he would throw it so hard that it literally was knocking the wall down.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
And when you're 6'9", 6'10" in high school, obviously you're good at basketball, but you're obviously good at baseball because not only are you an imposing person on the pitching mound, you can throw it extremely fast.
Yes, which is extremely intimidating, especially in the level that they're at. So he's in high school, and obviously he's throwing as hard as bad MLB or like a really good college player. You know what I mean? So he has that speed where he's at that next level, and
The raw tools are there.
yes,
And-
that's exactly what it is. The raw tools are there.
Like, he's definitely not a finished product by any means.
Oh,
However,
no.
when you're you're just an anomaly. Like, and then I don't use this negatively, but you're a freak.
Yes.
You're 6'10". You're almost touching triple. You're in the 90s in high school, and you're
Exactly.
still growing, which is
Exactly.
ridiculous. He's drafted as high as the 4th round by the Atlanta Braves in 1982.
But smartly turns it down. This is a common, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? The Braves are like, you look good. If you want to just start doing minor league stuff, and he's just like, nah, I'm going to go to where'd he go?
SC.
Yeah, he goes to USC and plays 2 years of basketball, which I never knew that he played college basketball.
Yeah, it was a basketball and baseball, which is crazy to think. Like, but he's obviously going to be your center, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's just sky hooking him in, and then like, oh wait, no, I'm really good at this baseball thing too.
Well, it just felt like he was probably better at it, or he had more potential with him being just like a dominant pitcher with all of this. Like, I bet teams were just like salivating over him, just like, yes, please come into our organization.
Let us mold you.
Exactly.
Let
That's
let
what
us-
it is,
Let us
really.
do stuff to you. But
Well,
I mean,
He
not
is
Penn
the-
State. This
he
is USC.
He is the big unit.
He's
So
the big unit. Funny story I had read in his first Pac-10 game as a relief pitcher, his manager, Rod Data, went to the mound, and Randy was like, should I pitch from the stretch when he came into the game? And he was looking around like, what do you mean? He thought the first base coach was on first base.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like, oh boy, just walk back to the dugout. But has a very successful college career. for USC. Teammates with Mark McGuire.
That's right.
Oddly enough. So
Thought that was interesting. Back when Mark was half the man he was.
Half the
man he used to be.
not a lot of forearm high fives.
No,
back
not
in
at
those
that
days.
time. He was a skinny boy. They were both just skinny boys. So,
But by 1985, he's picked in the second round of the draft by the Montreal Expos, who aren't even a team anymore.
and who throughout, I would say maybe 80 to 88 might have drafted the craziest lineup of people.
Oh, I know, right? We don't want to get into it.
It's when I start reading it, you're just like, oh yeah, they had. I mean, they had Pedro and Randy Johnson as like if they had molded them, they would have had them in their prime together.
So basically, the Expos of the 80s, while they didn't make the playoffs, they were one of the most competitive teams in the National League. And a lot of that was they put a lot of effort into their scouting department.
So much.
Because they could not afford to bring free agents there because of not only they're in another country with devalued currency, but they're in the province where they don't even speak English and they make less money and play in an essential toilet in Olympic Stadium.
Yes. So and you're so right where they were just like our only way to be competitive is out scouting teams, and boy did they then just stop being a franchise.
No, they just, well, you know.
Well,
The value of the
market
loonie
wasn't
and
there.
the,
Yes, the
French Canadians not wanting a new stadium.
everything of what you just said. So
But he advances through the minors pretty quickly because obviously he graduated college.
Yes.
It's not like, he's an 18-year-old they draft in the fourth round. They're like, we're going to keep you in A-ball maybe an extra year.
exactly, he does what you see. He just kind of goes through all of the steps of minor league.
But as he's going through it and he's doing well, I did want to bring up a couple things. In 86, he's in the Florida State League. 8-7, 3.16 ERA in 26 starts. He has 133 strikeouts in 119 and 2/3 innings. However, 94 walks.
Well, and him more than anybody, because you see guys and you're like, oh, that's from a movie. Him more than anybody, Bull Durham, where it's like, to be honest, Bull Durham and minor league.
I was just going to say Major League.
But
we better teach this kid some control before he kills someone.
Exactly, but just the 7 strikeouts, 7 walks.
It's
so just like his, and I get what they're referencing. They're referencing these guys with just absolute high velocity and the lack of control where it just goes not necessarily where they need it to.
If I were hitting against him as a left-handed batter, I would wear a diaper in the batter's box.
I would be so scared.
Like, that would be horrifying.
Well, when he finally gets to the Mariners, his teammates won't step in with him.
Yeah.
Like, they won't take batting practice, and like they have to put a mannequin up there, and you're just like,
knocks the head off.
Yep, exactly.
96. So 87, he's with Jacksonville in Double-A. 140 innings pitched, 163 strike, 128 walks.
Exactly. So he is a walk machine.
But by 88, he does so well in Triple-A with Indianapolis. Takes his strikeouts down a little bit, averaging basically a strikeout per 9 innings. There in 19 starts, he goes 8-7, and he's a late September call-up. And he does a fantastic job. He's called up September 15th, 1988 for his Major League debut against the Pirates. Finishes the year 3-0, 2.42 ERA. A complete game.
I was going to say, his start right here with the Expos, it looks like you're just like, oh, this is going to be their starter for a couple of years. He's going to develop. And then drops off.
But you know what a lot of that is? You bring these guys up as September call-ups. Nobody's got the book on these guys in the majors. So you're just seeing this. You're like, what is going on here? Then you have an off-season to prepare and everything else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense because he comes back the next season for the Expos and he's 0-4 with an ERA of like 6.67. So it's definitely he's still on the potential train, and the Expos end up dealing him to the Mariners in what some people think is like I was saying with them, if they're scouting these guys, trading them away is probably one of the worst things.
Well, he's 0-4. He's got 26 strikeouts, 26 walks in less than 30 innings.
Yep.
while you want him to come around, the Expos by the end of summer, July 31st, 1989, they're still in the thick of the NL East race.
Oh yeah, so they're trading for
what they're doing is essentially
dumping prospects,
dumping for an all-star to make the late season postseason push. So they trade Randy, Gene Harris, Brian Holman, all pitchers by the way, to the Seattle Mariners for Mike Campbell and most importantly Mark Langston, who is probably at this, 89 because this is Junior's rookie year. I would say Langston is not only their best pitcher, but probably their best player not named Ken Griffey Jr. So it doesn't end up working out for the Expos in 89.
Yeah.
And, well, what we see here, Seattle's actually kind of the perfect place for him to go.
and develop.
Because they've been crappy since their inception. They have just finally got Ken Griffey. They have not had a winning season since 1976 when they became a team.
Expectations are low.
Which is great, because sometimes lowered expectations, just like Mad TV, the dating show. This is what's good for Randy Johnson at this point.
I'm hoping we lose enough to we can relocate to Miami.
And we're going to talk about some Seattle relocation rumors later in this podcast. So his first year, he goes 7-9 and 22 starts with a 4.40 ERA. In 1990, though, he really serves notice that he's a dang good pitcher for them. He's like might be the best one on their staff.
I was just gonna say, so like I was saying, where the potential starts to really start to come together, even though he's still walking people like crazy, just everything else, because he's such an intimidating pitcher with his fastball and his slider at this time, because that's like his 1-2 at this point. He hasn't developed all these other pitches.
He really only has the two pitches.
Yes,
and sometimes he doesn't know where they're going, and that's the scary part.
Yes, because you can see some of these old times where it's literally like up and over people's head. You're like, that was scary.
And he's not trying to hit people either.
No, it's not a intimidation thing. It's literally he loses control of the ball.
But he's an all-star that year. He wins 14 games. Led the league in walks with 120.
Yep.
But on June 2nd, 1990, he makes history.
First Mariner ever to throw it wasn't a complete game, right? It was a no-hitter.
Yeah, it was a complete game, no hitter.
Oh, I mean a perfect game.
No, it wasn't.
That's what I meant.
Well, he walked six guys.
Yeah, because the one later is when he finally finds his control. But yeah, first Mariners no hitter, and that, like you were saying, like because there's like a bunch of stuff where you're like, dude, he made an all-star, and then after that he pitches this no hitter, and you're like, okay, this guy could be one of the best pitchers in the league.
Couple good quotes I found. He says, "When I struck out Mike Heath for the last out, I didn't know how to react. I just stood there," which is so, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yes. Yes.
And then Tony Phillips, who played for the Tigers, said he was throwing completely backwards. He was throwing fastballs when he should have been throwing breaking balls.
That's awesome.
Because he hasn't really developed as a pitcher to this point where it's not the Randy Johnson we know. It's just, this is a gigantic person just firing BBs and sliders at you.
Yeah, overpowering would be the way he would take everybody out. And to his credit, he like I imagine everybody wishes this happens for every player, is he literally just keeps getting better every single year. And you're just like, okay, this is like the ascent that you want on this absolutely like physical phenom, like you were saying earlier, a freak, and you're like, not in a bad way.
No.
In a way that you were like, I want everybody to be a freak like that.
I'm going to tame this wild stallion,
That's
Bill
right.
and Ted style. But 91-92, Mariners finally have a 500 season, above 500 season. But the control problems are really getting to him. 25 and 24 over the 2 years, 469 strikeouts, which is awesome. But he leads the league in walks both seasons, and also in hit by pitches in 92, but also strikeouts in 92.
But also, that's what I mean. He really is the Evie Calvin Lelouch, where he's just like has all of the statistics, and you're like, leads the league in strikeouts and walks and hit batter, and he's not attempting to hit these batters. It's not one of those things where he's like, we're going to put him in and it's going to start a shit. It's like, no. He lost control of that one again.
A big thing that he credits, though, and a Hall of Famer we did in one of our earlier episodes on, Nolan Ryan and Tom House, pitching guru. Nolan Ryan, when he was with Texas, saw him with the Mariners and just kind of pointed out some mechanical things that he was doing as far as falling off the mound. And for Randy, being 6'10" as a starting pitcher is very hard. Being 6'10" in any scenario in life is hard because you have so many moving parts at once, and to get them all synced up to do something like throwing a baseball is not easy.
Well, I feel like what he needed was a Hall of Fame pitcher to work out, because it literally was on his landing foot. He was just like, you're landing on your toe, try and land on your heel, and it's going to give you just a little bit more control. And go, because this is at the end of the 92 season.
Yeah.
Coming back into 93, people said they were just like, no, he was an amazing pitcher. In 93, he was a different pitcher. Like, that's the only, like, you don't see him walk people like he was.
No.
And now
his slider comes around.
Yes.
And yeah, you're throwing triple-digit fastball. Try hitting a 90-plus mile-an-hour slider.
Yes. From like all the way over here. It's like from off screen. It comes in from like first base, and you're like, where the hell did that even come from?
It's not even fair.
Especially if you're a left-handed hitter. Like,
I know.
It's so scary.
Diaper.
You're just like, that ball is coming right at me. But that's what a dominant pitcher he was with 2 pitches going into 93. We see Randy Johnson that everybody knows.
Yeah, I just walk into my local Walgreens, and they'd be like, what can I get you today? Randy Johnson's pitching this weekend. I got you. But in that offseason, actually, around Christmas time, his dad died.
I saw that.
And that was also kind of a huge motivating force for him, as far as just like, man, it's just a game, but, give it everything you possibly have.
Yep. Well, I did find that interesting, because it both was like, it's just a game, but at the same time, he was like, I'm going to put more into it. It's an interesting, because sometimes that can like take people out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It almost centered him.
Yes. It almost centered him.
So the next 2 years, he's an all-star, 32 and 14. 93 all-star game. The scene with John Kruk was pretty funny.
Yep.
Where
he has a couple of funny all-star moments.
Yeah, 97, the other one, Larry Walker, where they just get scared and
another expo.
Expo. Right?
Yeah, but he has these moments where he throws them so wild that you're just like, oh my God, that's kind of scary.
Both seasons he leads the league in strikeouts. He's
Yes.
308 in 93, 204 in 94, but of course the strike. He has 19 complete games in those 2 years.
You're not going to see pitchers like this anymore. This is it. This is a different game. Do you see he almost went to the Blue Jays?
I did, yeah. That would have been...
I love going back on these, because you're just like, if I heard that, I completely forgot about it. So,
oh my God, that would have been absolutely crazy.
yes.
94 he leads the AL in complete games. 94 he leads the league in shutouts.
Strike season. So
It's the strike season, but we get into 95, and the Mariners have finally built kind of a Leviathan, because Ken Griffey Jr.'s there. Jay Buhner, they traded for Ken Phelps.
got a rocket for an arm.
40 home runs.
You don't know what you're doing.
Edgar Martinez is in the Hall of Fame as your DH when he's
Yeah.
finally coming into his own. I mean, they're a very talented. Lou Piniella comes in. He's now the manager. They're ready to make a postseason run, and it's very important because the team is in danger of being relocated to Florida. Life imitating
I
art.
was just say, which it was a joke, and then it became so serious in this time where they're like, oh, no, we're going to have a Florida team.
Another one.
Yes,
because
we're going to have that was the Marlins, right?
Well, the Marlins were already there.
Okay.
They were going to move to St. Petersburg because until Barry Bonds got to San Francisco, that was what was going to happen. They're like, well, we need to put a team there. How about these Mariners who've never made the playoffs or won a division before?
They don't need basketball. They don't need baseball. They don't need anything in Seattle.
Oh, God. So in 95... And go listen to our 95 Angels episode because that ties into this and Randy Johnson. But basically what happens is California at the time, they're not Los Angeles of Anaheim or Orange Cat, whatever the fuck they call themselves.
Yeah.
But they build this huge lead. And as this is happening, this is also an election year in Seattle where they're voting on a new baseball stadium, and the Mariners are so far, but Randy's still kicking ass, though.
Yes,
I mean, he's the consistent because Junior gets hurt at the beginning of the year. By August, September, they start building back, and they finally catch California. In fact, because they lost their last series to Texas and California beat Oakland, they have to go to a one-game playoff.
Yes.
And Randy is the most dominant pitcher in baseball this year. 18-2, 2.48 ERA, leads the AL, wins his first Cy Young.
Second highest winning percentage. Some guy in like the 30s went 15-1. And you're just like, yeah, I'm going to give it to Randy.
I did want to bring this up. He had 294 strikeouts and 214.1 innings pitched, but only 65 walks. That's the type of improvement, the mechanics, and just him developing as a pitcher.
Almost 5 times as many strikeouts as walks. And then before it would be like, yeah, he has like 5 more walks this season than strikeouts.
Yeah.
So it really is his game, and he says this, the Nolan Ryan thing and just the refocusing on the offseason with his dad passing away, it made him the Hall of Famer. If those two things, I think he would have just been a wild pitcher. You know what I mean?
So they have to play a 1-game playoff to determine the NL West. Or the AL West, pardon me. And they're playing California, and who is starting the game for the California Angels?
Wait, who's starting the game for the Angels?
Mark Langston.
Oh, yes, Mark Langston.
The guy he was traded for back in Montreal. So what does Randy do in this game? Just doesn't give an absolute shit about California. 9 innings, 9-1, they win. He pitches a complete game, which
I was going to say it was a 3-hitter or something like that.
It was, I think Tony Phillips hit a homer in the 9th of that game. But when on one hand, it's awesome. They go to the playoffs for the first time. They win the division for the first time, but they waste Randy.
Yes.
Before a playoff series with the Yankees.
With the Yankees, yep.
With the Yankees and their traveling secretary and cotton uniforms.
So he has to play, instead of playing game 1, he has to play game 3.
Yeah, and he wins game 3. Just a fantastic job.
Yes. And then he's not ready for game 5, but I'm just saying he does some stuff like this later in his career. So they go to game 5 with the Yankees, and this is when I feel like Randy, he's such a dominant pitcher where you're just like, no, we need our best pitcher right now.
This is when he became a national baseball legend, not just like a Seattle base. Because the playoff game win against California, that cemented him there.
Huge.
But to come in game 5, pitch 3 innings of relief.
Yep, 9th, 10th, and 11th. So it's literally you're just like, he shut down the Yankees. I think he struck out 6 in 3. Yeah. You're just like, Jesus, man. It's such dominant pitching when you need it.
Oh, totally. And they end up winning the game in 11, 6-5 on the famous Edgar Martinez double.
And just to point out, the Yankees really do not like Randy Johnson.
They do not like him at all. And I don't think he likes them either.
Nah.
And they'll never meet again. Ever. Never.
You won't even pitch for him.
They won't even talk about Randy Johnson in New York City. Starts 2 games in the ALCS. They wasted him, though, in the game 5, so they have to wait.
Yes.
They end up losing in 6 games. Game 6 was the Kenny Lofton wild pitch game that went to the backstop.
Interesting.
And they ended up losing 4-0 to Cleveland, but they saved baseball in a. It was like watching Willie Mays Hayes and Ricky Vaughn and Jake Taylor in the Pacific Northwest
against the Yankees.
Because they're evil.
So good.
96, he has back surgery, though.
Yeah, so this is when his back, which is a huge problem with his injury, which looking at his career longevity, you're like, I almost don't believe it. But he has like horrible back problems from like now until the end of his career.
And we're talking like tall guys on this podcast like Sabone Zone and Ralph Sampson. Like it's sometimes hard to keep these guys healthy.
Yes. Well, like later in his career, he literally lays down in between innings so he doesn't have to in between every single inning so he can like stretch his back out. So it's like, he's sidelined for a lot of 96.
97, they come back though and they run it back. They win the AL West. They had an even better team than they did in 95 that year. Wins his 2nd Cy Young. 20-4.
Which is
2.28 ERA. This is like only Pedro Martinez is reaching these microscopic ERA levels.
This is his best ERA of his whole career was 2.28.
I read 2 times he struck out 19 batters in a game.
Yep.
One of which they lost.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
What was it? Ray Durham, though, the one that they won against the White Sox, he said, basically, I look for one pitch, his fastball. If he's getting a slider over, I'm out anyway.
Yep.
That's just what a force he was. The All-Star game that year, that was the Larry Walker one.
Yeah, where he turns his hat his helmet backwards, and yeah.
Unfortunately, this postseason's not very kind to Randy. He's got to face another Hall of Fame pitcher in Mike Mussina, who had a hell of an ALDS with Baltimore. He loses both of his starts to Mussina, and now is time where Randy started. I won't say he's stressing, but 98's or 99's going to be or 98's a contract year for Randy.
And earlier in the seasons, the Dodgers had come in to try and trade for him, and the Mariners were like, "No, we're going to keep him. We're going to re-sign him."
It's a postseason run too.
Yes.
Like you're not trading your.
You're not
back.
exactly. The timing wasn't there, but then once they get knocked out of the postseason, they make this realization of like he probably isn't going to re-sign with us.
So 98, they've already handed the bag to A-Rod Jr.
Yep.
Martinez is locked up. They don't. I mean, they're not a huge market team. So and by that same token, he's 35 years old too. And that's, I think, also what went into Seattle's thinking. But to be fair, when we go over, because we've mentioned this trade on our 2001 Mariners podcast, the trade benefited both sides.
Yes,
Seattle didn't trade him for a fucking washing machine. Like they got value out of it.
At the end of a contract that he probably wasn't going to re-sign, that they didn't really have money for him to re-sign. So like all of it worked out. But to your credit, when you say he's 35, I remember somebody saying they were just like, he is a velocity pitcher. So everybody was thinking he was just like his arm's about to die
at some point,
and he's having back problems. He's a tall ass dude. Injuries are going to start to come in. So like there was that thought, I feel like, from the Mariners being like, we're going to cut our losses right here and just be like, go on. And he goes to the Astros.
And to be fair though, up to July 31st, 1998, which is 9 years after to the day that he's traded from Montreal to Seattle.
Yep.
Up to that point, he was 9-10 with a 4.33 ERA. He's traded to the Astros for Freddie Garcia, 2005 World Series hero for the White Sox, John Halama, a good starter and reliever, Carlos Guillen, who was a fantastic player for the Detroit Tigers in the middle infield on those Miguel Cabrera teams.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Nice.
I mean, obviously they all played for the Mariners and they had their moments with the Mariners,
Exactly.
but I mean, like, these are really
Good
players.
pieces. Yeah.
The Astros were ahead of the Cubs there in the NL Central. They were in a road trip in Pittsburgh, and during the news break, Jeff Bagwell bought everybody drinks at the bar.
Well, so like it gets literally broken on sports radio or whatever, and he's just like gets so excited. He's just like, oh my God, we just picked up the best pitcher in baseball. Like, yeah.
His first start, August 2nd, 1998, he strikes out 12 Pirates. And which was the most strikeouts by an Astros pitcher in 29 years, but the end of this season for him
unbelievable.
Was he was the most dominant pitcher in baseball down the stretch. 10-1, 1.28 ERA. 329 strikeouts between the two clubs. And you're thinking, God, if there's anybody that's going to beat the Braves in 98, it's Houston, because they're not going to get him in the division series, but he would pitch 3 games against Atlanta in an NLCS.
Yeah, in a 7.
Unfortunately,
they run into
in the NLDS. It's not his fault. It was a very freaky, confusing. There was one pitch. This man right here hit a Randy Johnson slider almost in the opposite batter's box for a double.
Some say there was something with a fan being placed. I don't know. We're going to leave the fans on when my man goes up. He starts game 1 and 4, and he actually loses both of them for the Astros.
Kevin Brown pitched game 1, and so Kevin Brown had a hell of a 98 NLCS and NLDS, and like I think he had 16 strikeouts in game 1.
Yeah,
against Houston. It just nothing broke their way in that entire series.
Yeah, exactly.
16 strikeouts in game 1. And in game 4, it was the bullpen and fielding errors that blew it for him in San Diego.
Yeah.
So Randy Johnson needs a team now because he's a free agent.
He's a free agent.
Astros aren't going to bring him back. They brought him in as the hired gun. And December 10th, 1998, he makes an interesting decision at the time that was thought to be for where he ends up wanting to go.
Well, it's very interesting because he goes to the newest team, essentially. So he goes to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They became a franchise in 98 and now it's 99. So he's literally just in their second season.
And they were a last place team in 98.
And they're like, it's almost like an obvious they're that bad because they're like, we're brand new. So, but they start to get people where you're like, oh, this could be a good team.
Matt Williams. This is when, like, this is their, I mean, Matt Williams, they got the first season, but this is your marquee star. And it's crazy to think because at the time people were like, 4 years, $52 million for a 36-year-old pitcher?
Yes.
I mean,
with a fifth-year option.
Exactly.
So, yes.
All he does is go 17-9, lead the NL in ERA. I think he gets a Cy Young again, which made him, Pedro, and Gaylord Perry the only three guys to get him
in both
leagues.
Yep.
I did want to add he had a career high 271.2 innings pitched and 36 years old, 364 strike, 2 pitches.
Yes.
2 freaking pitches.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then this is when the Diamondbacks start to build their team out, so they get I didn't want to mention they end this season. They lost in the postseason to the Mets. Oh yeah,
which doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like a Lions victory.
Hey, Jared Goff.
It happened.
Bite those kneecaps, Dan Campbell.
It happened. So they pick up the political analyst now, Curt Schilling.
I mean, he's too crazy for Breitbart now. Curt Schilling, they're just like, whoa, buddy. Whoa. I mean, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I mean, if there is a better postseason pitcher than Randy Johnson of the modern era, it might be Curt Schilling.
Yes. And I will 100% back him for the Hall of Fame. I will never back anything he says.
He's quite the character. He's a man. He's not even really a man of his time anymore.
No. And I'll tell you what was interesting is they said that him and Randy were so different that it made such a 1-2 punch where he was just like, Curt Schilling is a loud, obnoxious dickhead, and Randy is a reserved gentleman.
He's like the Terminator, though. All I can think of is the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, that's great.
Wins a second Cy Young though in 2000.
In his first season in his second season as a Diamondback.
8 complete games, 3 shutouts, leads the NL and leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts that year. Unfortunately, they don't make the playoffs.
No.
San Francisco wins the division, and I believe the Mets snagged the wild card that year. But in 2001, they put it all together. But before the season even begins, we're in Tucson, Arizona, Chris.
March 24th.
Yes.
And one of the
Tucson Electric Park.
Craziest. We're in Tucson right now. And one of the craziest. It's when I watch it because it'll pop up on your feed every now and again. You'll just be like, oh my god! Every single time it makes me think of Sandlot, not just of like people's reaction. They're just like, I never seen anybody hit the guts out of a ball before. But in truth, it was I've never seen a bird explode by a pitch.
I think that bird left a note behind, Chris.
Oh my god!
If Randy Johnson tried that 100 times. I don't think he could hit the bird 100 times.
If he tried it 10,000 times, I don't know if the timing, the bird flies in. It's not like he's like just drifting there. It's literally both going full speed.
And it's one of them morning doves, which is a classy pigeon. It just said, I've had enough. Goodbye, cruel world. But what a way to go out.
And you know what? We got to be true with ourselves. You don't have to keep the pigeon in your pocket anymore.
No.
I think I might have hugged him too hard.
God damn it. That bird had a death, but at the 7th,
he had a death wish.
It's a spring training game, and he just launches one.
If you've never seen it, it is one of the craziest because it's so it looks almost like a magic trick.
I love how mad PETA got. It's like he couldn't do that if he tried. No human person could hit a bird mid-flight, not like just like taking off the ground.
No,
I mean like
mid-flight
gunning it.
It's a straight up SAT question. They're just like, Randy Johnson is pitching a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. A bird is flying in at 4 miles per hour on the opposite side. When will
when will Dom get hard because he's afraid of birds?
Oh my God, so quick.
But you always pick B because, like that, I think that's the most consistent answer on the SATs.
I just go through B. I was just.
I like to draw boobs on my Scantron. Anyway, so spring training, but Diamondbacks are locked and loaded in 2001.
Yes.
You can listen to our Schilling episode if you want any more insight into his experience. But Put it all together. Wins a Cy Young for the third straight year in the National League.
Yes.
He probably would have won it in Houston if he played a full season in 98.
I have no doubt.
When you're thinking about it, 97, 99, 2000, 2001, that's 4 Cy Youngs in 5 years. It's probably why Curt Schilling never won a Cy Young in his whole career, because he's on the same pitching staff.
Well, I think it was this one where it might have been next year, but they were going 1 and 2. So literally Schilling, and that's why the Diamondbacks were that good, because they had a 1-2 punch that was almost unbeatable. 2001, they make it to the World Series for the first time ever.
21 and 6 that year, though. So he won over 20 games. That year.
21 and 6. Yes, definitely.
And I did want to bring up one game in May because it is important. There at Bank One, he struck out 20 Reds, and he got a no decision.
Yep. He struck out 20 communists.
The Cincinnati Redlegs.
And still got a Wolverines. He also, this is my other thing, he's also doing this every year.
Keeps
getting
me warm.
300 strikeouts.
No.
He has so many strikeouts. It's crazy. He needs to throw more ground balls. That's all I'm saying.
It's more democratic, but
way.
it's not even right. So he goes to the brink there. He lost his first start at the NLDS.
Oh, yeah.
Or he lost his start in the NLDS to the Card. He went 8 innings and only gave up 3 runs, though.
Yep.
So it's not like he technically lost.
And he has a loss. He didn't lose. Yeah.
NLCS against the Braves, he has 2 starts, wins both of them. They sweep Atlanta.
Yeah, they sweep
NLCS. Atlanta. It said 1 complete game, 1 shutout of the 2 starts, 2 runs in 16 innings, and only 10 hits. Against that Braves lineup,
yeah, and it's really some of the best pitching that you'll see.
And so in the World Series against the Yankees, he wins Game 2 at home to take a 2-0 lead, what was thought to be a commanding lead in this series.
That's very true.
Arizona should have swept this series. Looking back, I mean,
well, they had New York had a little bit of American spirit behind them.
They did. So. They did. Thanks a lot, Bin Laden.
Yeah, I know. Diamondbacks crushed that American spirit like you wouldn't believe.
But in Game 6, though, and this is very important. Randy gets a hit in this game. Yeah. I think he gets an RBI and scores a run in this game too. But he's very dominant in their very dominant Game 6 win. He goes 7 innings. They're down 3-2, so he's pitching to stave off elimination.
Yes,
they win 15-2. Bob Brenly, his manager, asks him after the game if he can go the next day. If he can pitch the next day, Game 7, out of the bullpen, much like 1995.
Yes.
Also against these hated Yankees. And he said, "This is the World Series. I'll be ready."
Yep.
Which is Randy Johnson for, "I'm a fucking professional."
So good.
So you get to Game 6. Schilling's pitching this one. Like I said, you can go listen to that episode and how he does. Randy comes in down 2-1 in the 8th inning. My God.
Yes, and locks it down. So they're losing, and he comes in and dominates so much. And if you never see it with Gonzalez's...
Retires all 4 batters he faces.
Yes,
too.
and he gives the Diamondbacks the opportunity to then go on and win by a run.
They could have scored more runs after that Soriano knock. You know what I mean? But kept it close enough. And because he did it, and he was the last guy, and then in the bottom of the 9th, because he comes in there... He's the winning pitcher. He won 3 World Series games. That probably hasn't happened since fucking Mickey Lolich in the 60s, or the Dave episodes we did about those.
Yeah.
It's we're going to play 9 World Series games.
Yeah. Well, I saw that out of the 11 Diamondbacks playoff wins, he had 5 of them.
Oh, God.
And 3 of them were in the World Series. So it's crazy.
And Schilling, much like when he was in Philadelphia, he was probably getting no decisions outside of that Game 1 because his bullpen just completely evaporated.
Yep.
But he's co-World Series MVP.
Yes.
And first time he wins a World Series. He's a world champion now, which that...
Well-deserved.
He was obviously going to the Hall of Fame, but
Yeah.
this kind of just cements everything. 2002, he just wins the NL Triple Crown.
I was going to say this
pitching.
might have been his best regular season pitching. Was
Yeah.
2002. He gets the Triple Crown with he's just the best at everything in pitching.
Wins, ERA, and strikeouts. So Miguel Cabrera, but just for pitchers.
But yes, literally, yeah. So another Cy Young, 4th consecutive Cy Young, where you're just like, yeah, the Astros really messed up by letting him go. I know he was a hired gun, but like, Jesus, man.
No, they have to sign the immortal Derek Bell and Richard Hidalgo. No, but but I did want to bring up in 2002, though, mind you, he is 39 years. He is 39 years old. He 260 innings leads Major League Baseball.
Yes.
So, do lose to the Cardinals in the postseason, and now we start seeing Arizona selling pieces.
Yeah. They're pretty much done with their. It's like what every franchise do. They're like, we're going to rebuild, and you're just like, you just don't want to pay this out the ass anymore.
2003 as right knee surgery, but 2004 as a freaking 41-year-old man, Randy Johnson. Because he's a man. He's 40.
Throws a perfect game. Not a no-hitter.
May 18th.
Yep. And that's the thing. I think he's the oldest. He has to be the oldest person to ever throw a perfect game.
Maybe it's Cy Young or somebody in the before times.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
It has to be, right?
Yeah.
But perfect game. I remember watching that game on the Superstation.
Oh, nice. The TBS.
Braves. Yeah, so the Braves telecast, it's like Skip Carey. Randy Johnson pitching pretty well today.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Went 2-0. 13 strikeouts. He finished second that year in the Cy Young. That's how great.
Clemens or whatever. Yeah.
Well, Clemens was doing a little bit of.
Yeah, I know. But then he next season he ends up getting traded to the Yankees, which I always thought was a weird.
I never understood why. Because I'm sure he's one of those guys who had a no trade clause, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where you want to go?
Yeah.
Like, I would have been like anywhere but there.
Maybe he thought they had the World Series potential, but he was just so hated by them, and he didn't have a great time in New York.
No, like baseball wasn't fun. I mean, granted, when you're in your early 40s and over 2 seasons you go 34-19 and almost have 400 strikeouts, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
But I think those were the Kenny Lofton teams post that Boston collapse that just had absolutely no cohesion.
And his ERA was going up, and I bet it was like sometimes you just get a disjointed locker room and it's just not there.
2007 though, he's traded back to the Diamondbacks, and now that he's 43 years old,
it's crazy.
43. He goes 4-3 in 10 starts, but he's got back surgery.
Yeah.
But the thing is, by this point in his career, he's in 2008 he goes 11-10, and at that point he has 295 wins. So obviously you're gonna, he's the to me he's the last one. He's gonna. He'll go down as the last one. There will never be another one.
So he's looking for another team to sign with as a free agent, just to rip that record. I get it.
And he's good, and where he goes is important too, because he's going to a team that's rebuilding that has a lot of good young pitching.
Yep.
They're not there yet, but he can be on the staff. He can go get his record. He's going back to Northern California. It's just a nice fit. And on June 4th, 2009, he wins his 300th game against Washington, the team the Expos became.
Oh, yeah.
Which
that's
I
interesting.
Found as a nice spider web. His son was a bat boy for the game. Finished the season with an 8-6 record, almost a 5 ERA, which,
that's fine.
You're
44.
44, 45.
Yeah.
And going to be the last guy to get to 300.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's a photojournalist because he took photography.
I was going to say,
USC.
so after he retired, he became like a really respected photographer. And if you look up his logo
is the best.
Is a baseball hitting a bird and a bird exploding.
It was just
so perfect.
What was that? But he does like actual huge events that he goes like rock concerts in addition to baseball and things like that.
Actually respected photographer. They're not hiring because it's like, Randy John. It's like, oh no, this guy like really knows what he's doing. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, I would have to say the best left-handed pitcher ever. And
I don't think you could even make they're obviously Hall of Famers, but
yeah.
Steve Carlton and Warren Spahn are not Randy Johnson.
Not as intimidating, and what you were saying, the fear.
But the mustache and the mullet and everything.
The fear that these guys had. He was like 6'10" with this look.
Just look at that dominating. Right there if you can. Just zoom on in there. But I did want to bring up statistics, though, because it talks this is why he's the best left-handed pitcher ever. 303 and 166. 3.29 career ERA, 4,875 strikeouts, which is second all time to the Ryan Express, the guy that helped him.
Yes, that
which,
changed his
Could you
career.
imagine how many more he would have had if he had that advice before 28, 29 years old? He had 10.6 strikeouts for every 9 innings. That was the average. 10-time All-Star, 5-time Cy Young, World Series co-MVP, 9-time led the league in strikeouts, and made the Hall of Fame in 2015.
Yeah,
So,
without a doubt.
First ballot. So,
Yep.
Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson, the big unit.